Welcome to Tigray Television. I'm Erin Imana. I'm here with today's news. Stay with us. In his statement earlier today, EU's top diplomat Joseph Borrell called the restoration of basic services in Tigray a sine qua non, and said the Ethiopian government has the responsibility to provide these services to the people of Tigray. This statement came in light of the statement by the Ethiopian government that expressed dismay that the joint statement by the special envoys that visited Mekelle last week called for the restoration of basic services, referring to it as an indulgence of Tigray's government preconditions. Abil Tsagabu has the report.
The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Joseph Borrell, said the restoration of basic services to Tigray was sine qua non, emphasizing that the restoration of services and free movement of people, goods and services can neither be disputed nor negotiated. The High Representative also stressed on the responsibility of the Ethiopian government to provide these services to the people of Tigray. This comes following a statement by the Ethiopian Prime Minister Security Advisor Redwan Hussein last week that expresses dismay by the special envoys following their visit to Tigray called for the restoration of basic services, referring to a request to lift the blanket suspension of public services as an indulgence of Tigray government precondition for the start of peace talks. The advisor also expressed that the Ethiopian government hoped that talk would start ahead of the restoration of basic services, while the government of Tigray has repeatedly stated that it would not join any negotiation process while the siege on Tigray that has resulted in a catastrophic humanitarian situation continues. Borrell recalled WFP's estimation that more than 13 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in northern Ethiopia, while expressing concerns on the issue of access for the population most in need, especially in Tigray. The EU High Representative noted that a negotiated ceasefire, unfettered humanitarian access, and the full resumption of services in Tigray, as well as accountability for atrocities committed by all parties, are prerequisites to revive the partnership of the EU and Ethiopia. Borrell finally called on conflict parties to show real determination in their commitment to peace, while stressing on the need to restore services and lifting the blockade on Tigray.
Global Society of Tigray Scholars issued a statement on Wednesday calling on EU and U.S. special envoys to carry out a close follow-up of promises made by the Ethiopian government following their recent visit. The statement appreciated the urgent call made by the envoys for the restoration of basic services, including banking, electricity, and telecommunication, which it said was necessary to mitigate the humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray. Abil Tsagabu has the detail.
Global Society of Tigray Scholars issued a statement on Wednesday calling on the EU and US special envoys to carry out a close follow-up of promises made by the Ethiopian government following their recent visit. The statement appreciated the urgent call made by the envoys for the restoration of basic services, including banking, electricity, and telecommunication, which it said was necessary to mitigate the humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray, and appealed the envoys to follow the immediate implement of the promises made to restore these services. The statement also appreciated the envoys' call for the need to ensure unfettered humanitarian access to Tigray and war-affected areas in Amhara and Afar regions, while it said unfettered access should be measured by the impact on households in Tigray, not by the number of trucks that make it to Tigrayan borders. The statement has also commended the envoys for urging the Ethiopian government to allow access to conflict-affected areas to the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia, and has further called on the need to fund and extend mandates of the Commission to bring perpetrators of human rights violations to justice. The statement finally urged on the need to lift the siege imposed on Tigray and the withdrawal of Eritrean and Amhara forces from western Tigray and other Tigrayan territory to avoid further clashes, which is said may be unavoidable if things remain the same.
Adigrat University is one of the universities based in Tigray and administered by federal budget. The university has conducted a study on the level of destruction to school property since the start of the war that shows that much of the university's property has been a target of deliberate and systematic destruction by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces. Not only that, but the university has lost 9 staff members while 8 others remain missing. Our reporter Sarah Kalali has the details.
Adigrat University is one of the 4 universities in Tigray under the management of the federal government. The university had provided its service to many across the country for over a decade, with the capacity of enrolling 20,000 students. A new study by the university reveals that the university was a target of large-scale destruction during the 8-month-long occupation of Tigray. The president of the university, Dr. Zaid Negar, says that a lot of facilities in the university, including classrooms, offices, and laboratories, were destroyed beyond repair, with the ICT sector seeing the largest destruction.
The scale of destruction our university saw in all sectors is immense. It is known that our university has several colleges and all the teaching materials and other resources of these colleges sustained great damage. Our classrooms, our teacher's office, teaching materials and even computers were destroyed. The greatest level of destruction was to our technological equipment. We had video conference rooms, cloud computing services capable of providing service to a large number of students. We had CCTV cameras and a network infrastructure capable of providing wireless internet access in all parts of the university. We also had a large data center. Much of this has now been completely destroyed.
In addition to the damage on the university's property, a senior lecturer at the university, Tsagab Aragawi, also says 9 of its staff were killed during the occupation, while an additional 8 were missing.
9 of our employees were killed by enemy forces, 7 support staff and 2 teachers. In addition to this, 8 of our staff members are currently missing. Their family members have contacted us multiple times. The information we have is that these staff members have been kidnapped.
Dr. Gabrekidan Tesfai, Vice President for Research and Community Service, says that the majority of the destruction in the university occurred because forces were camped inside the university camps.
Our university saw a lot of destruction during the invasion, just as other universities have, especially the human cost because the university is close to Eritrean border. It was a target of destruction early on, and even used the university campus as a camp.
Mayor of the city of Adigrat, Laaka Tesfa Mariam, says that the university was essential in providing opportunities for higher education and served as a source of income for many residents in Adigrat.
For students from poor families, the university provided a chance for access to education close to home and was a big part of Adigrat's economy by providing job opportunity.
Adigrat University, once a great center for higher education, now lies in ruins, as Tigrayans continue to be denied yet another basic human right.
The 8 months occupation of Tigray by the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces was characterized by the deliberate destruction and looting of health facilities. This followed by a year-long siege that has prevented the entry of medical supplies and other basic items, has depleted life-saving medications across the state. Our reporters visited the dialysis center in Ida Referral Hospital, the only center in Tigray dedicated to giving dialysis for patients with kidney failure. We spoke with Haftom Abadi. He has been receiving dialysis at the center for 4 years, but now he says the center is no longer able to give him and many others like him the care that they so badly need. Haftom has lost 40 of the 60 members of his support group, and says he too is awaiting for his death. Sarun Zagai.
This is Haftom Abadi. We met Haftom in the dialysis center at Eider Comprehensive Specialized Hospital. Haftom says the problem with his kidney began following a car accident years ago, which left him half paralyzed. Haftom has been in dialysis care at Eider for more than 4 years now. Before the start of the war, Haftom used to get service twice a week. But now, Haftom says him and other patients are struggling to get service at all.
أو صومن كل شيء جبرنا يو جنزونا خفلنا dialysis نجبرنا.
Before all of this, we used to get services twice a week. We paid 1,250 birr each time. I covered this with my monthly salary, but now due to the siege, it's impossible to get services at all. Almost all our friends have died and we are waiting in line.
Haftom says the blockade on essential items and the discontinuation of basic services has severely affected the capacity of patients to access health care.
The discontinuation of services like electric and running water has also severely affected us. You came to dialysis without electricity. We discontinue the services if we can't find electricity or fuel to run a generator. You can't even find an alternative since this is the only dialysis center in the region. Due to all this, we are leading a very difficult life. We have patients who come from different parts of Tigray. We have patients who come from Shira, Skede, Tsimbla, Macho, Alamata, and so on. They suffer due to lack of transportation. They either have no money to pay for transportation or there is no fuel, so they don't get one. Some of them get here after it is too late. It is really hard.
Haftom tells us that as a result of the discontinuation of basic services and lack of medical supplies, he lost 45 of 60 members of his support group, explaining that no amount of aid that reached Tigray can undo the damage that has already been done.
International organizations like ICRC give us some support, but much of the support has come after the damage has already been done. After all our friends are dead. After all, our hope's gone. More than 45 out of 60 of our members are dead because of the siege.
Haftom also explains the psychological toll of losing so many friends. He says it's been as much of a strain as the physical wounds.
The mental strain is hard. Watching patients beside you die on daily basis and knowing you are next is very hard. When we get medication for a month or so, we became hopeful. But we also worry about what we will do after that batch is finished.
Haftom calls on the world to do what it can to save the life of the many in need.
There are only few of us remaining. Out of 60 patients, only 17 or so patients are still getting dialysis here. What's done is done, but more needs to be done to save the lives of those of us that still remains. There are people with bright future and hope here. Please help us by bringing this blockade to an end and donating medicine and medical supplies to health facilities.
Ragadam Weaving Association in Aksum is a small clothing company that was established over 13 years ago. Over that span of time, the company had started to compete in international markets, made millions, and rescued its many members from poverty. Today, much of the association property has been destroyed by the invading forces, as forcing it to close shops and leaving its members and dozens of employees desperate. Win Takidana reports.
Gannet Gabrislase is chairwoman of Ragadam Weaving Cooperative Association in Aksum. The association was formed almost 13 years ago by a group of monks who, encouraged by government support for groups that want to launch small business, started selling cotton clothing.
It has been more than 13 years now since our association was founded. There was a campaign to help launch small businesses. The motto was from begging to weaving. So we changed our attitudes and did our best to get out of that life. We started producing traditional clothes that were sold on the international market.
According to Gannet, Ragadam Weaving had grown to such an extent that before the war, it had employed 56 people. But today, due to the destruction of its property by invading forces, Ragadam is no longer able to support its members.
Members of this association are monks. Excluding them, the association had provided more than 56 people with an employment opportunity. Including this building, we had millions worth of property, starting with an initial capital of 200 birr. However, now, due to the destruction by the invaders, the association has crumbled. As you can see, the machines are all destroyed, and due to the blockade, we couldn't find any spare parts. We're all out of work now and back on the streets to beg.
We used to knit sweaters, kuta, scarves for monks, and many others. Our products used to include customers of all ages and sex. But now, we've had to stop work because of the war. As you can see, the weavers are destroyed. Gannes says the profits the association earned used to go support children and older people that needed help. But now, since they stopped working, many, especially mothers and children that depended on income from the association, now are dying due to lack of food.
There are many here that have died of hunger, people we used to provide care for. One of them was an old woman. She couldn't tell the difference between day and night after 5 days of not eating. This is how difficult things have become. It's really very sad.
Pillage and destruction has left dozens of people that depend on small factory desperate. Just some of the millions suffering due to a deliberate and systematic attack on Tigray's economy.
Well, that's it for me today. Thank you for staying with us.